So today we're going to be working on a lesson called Write Expressions, where letters stand for numbers. So this goes right along with what you're learning with Ms. Retger. Read number 1 with me, fill in the blanks when I pause. Instructions for a craft say that the length of a piece of red should be 7 inches less than the length of a piece of blue ribbon. A. How long is the red ribbon if the length of the blue ribbon is? And then it gives us 3 measurements. What I want us to do first, and please write this exactly where I'm writing it, is we're going to write an equation using letters that represent the same things that are in the situation. So I'm going to have R be my red ribbon, and I'm going to have B be my blue ribbon. So I know that if I take my blue ribbon and I subtract 7, I'm going to get the length of my red ribbon because it says the red ribbon is 7 inches less than the blue ribbon, which means the blue ribbon has to be longer. Write that here. For all of these questions, we're going to plug in the numbers for the variables in our main equation. So if the blue ribbon is 10 inches, I know that 10 minus 7 equals 3 inches. So my final answer here is 3 inches. What about if the blue is 27 inches? In this situation, once again, B is going to be the number that I'm given. So I'm taking 27 minus 7, and that's going to give me 20 inches. So in this case, my answer is 20 inches. Now we get a little bit trickier over here. What about if B is X inches? So I can't actually put in a number, so I'm going to have to put in X. And I know that X minus 7 equals my red ribbon. So my answer in this case isn't a number, it's an equation. X minus 7 is my answer. Go down to B. How long is the blue ribbon if the red ribbon is 12 inches? So I'm going to go back to my main equation, except this time I don't know B. So I'm going to say B minus 7 equals 12. Here's where we get a little bit tricky because what we need to do is balance this equation. I want my B to be isolated. I want to isolate the variable so I can figure out what it is. So I look at B minus 7. To get the 7 to the other side, I have to do the opposite of subtraction, which is addition. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 7 to my left-hand side. And if I add it to my left-hand side, I also have to add it to my right-hand side. So what I end up with is that B equals 12 plus 7, or B equals 19. That's my final answer. Okay, let's take a look at 2. This time we're going to do part together and you're going to do part on your own. Tyler has 3 times as many as mine. Okay, so once again, I want to write my basic equation up here. I'm going to use T for Tyler and M for mine. So I know that 3 times my, or 3M, equals T, because Tyler has 3 times as many books as my. So I would have to take my's books and multiply them by 3 to get what Tyler has. Okay, let's do these situations. How many books does my have if Tyler has? Okay, so I'm going to leave this as 3M equals 15. Now, I have to do the opposite of multiplication because I know that 3 next to an M really means 3 times M. The opposite of multiplication is division. So I'm going to take 3M divided by 3. If I do it on the left-hand side, I have to do it on the right-hand side. So 15 divided by 3. So what I'm left with is that M equals 5. Okay, I'm going to pause for a second. I want you to do the same thing for number 21. Go ahead and pause the video. Okay, let's go over it, what you put. We're doing exactly what we did before, except this time instead of 3m equaling 15, we're going to say 3m equals 21. Just like we did before, we have to isolate the m, get it by itself so we can figure out what it is. So I know here that 3m I can divide by 3. 21 I can divide by 3. So then my answer ends up being m equals 7. Okay, this last one we're going to do together because it's tricky. If Tyler has if Tyler has X books. So in this case, I know that 3m equals X. So what I have to do is figure out, well, what is just the m? Because the question is, how many books does my have? So I can't leave it as 3m equals X. I have to get m by itself. Opposite of multiplication, division. So 3m divided by 3, x divided by 3. So then I'm left with m equals x divided by 3. So here's your final answer. Tyler has 18 books. How many books does my have? Go back to our original equation here. We know that 3 of whatever my has equals 18. Pause the video and solve that. Okay, let's go over it. You should have divided by 3, divided by 3. So I know that my, in this case, has 6 books. And number 3, a bottle holds 24 ounces of water. It has X ounces of water in it. So it holds up to 24, underline that, but it only has X inside of it right now. So my question is, what does 24, what it holds, minus X, what it has right now, what does that represent? So I know that if I drank out of my water bottle, but I started with 24, that I would be left with X. So how do I get from what I started with to what I have left? The number in between is however much I drank. So in this situation, 24 minus X means the amount of water that was drank. If the water bottle started out full. So again, this type of question is just helping us to think about a real world situation where I'm using variables, I'm using a letter to represent an actual amount. Look at 4. Write an equation represented by this tape diagram that uses each of the following operations. Okay, in this case, each of these numbers, 9, 9, and 9, we're going to say means X. So I'm going to write here X, X, and X. Because since it says equation, I want to try to use a variable. I'm going to do A and B with you. So A, I'm thinking to myself, how could I use addition to show that 3 x's equals 27? I could say x plus x plus x equals 27. How could I use subtraction? I know that if I start with 27 and I subtract 1x, I'm left with 2 x's. Okay? Now on your own, I want you to pause and try multiplication and division, and then we'll go over it. Okay, let's go over it. I'm going to switch colors. I'm doing blue. I know that multiplication, I have 3 x's, so I can simply write 3x equals 27. D, division. Here I'm going to start with my whole 27, And I know that 27 divided by 3 equals x. All right, double check that for C and D you have exactly what I have. 5 says select all of the equations that describe each situation and then find the solution. So it says Hans' house is 450 meters from school. Okay. Lynn's house is 135 meters closer to school. How far is Lynn's house from school? I think for this, it's very helpful to draw a picture. So what I'd like you to do is write an S. S means school. I know that if I measure the distance between S and Hans' house, which is going to be way over here, so we'll write H for Han. If I measure that distance, it's going to be 450 meters. So above that line, I'm going to write 450 meters. But I also know that Lynn's house is actually 135 meters closer to school. So Lynn's house is actually going to be on this side because she's closer to school. So I'm going to just draw a little dot for Lynn, a little dot for Hal, and a little dot for school. So I know that the distance between Lynn's and Hal's house is 135 meters. And that's only for this distance right here from Lynn to Hal. That is 135. Okay, now I have a good visual and I think I'm ready to try some of these problems. How far is Lynn's house from school? So I know that my total from Hal to school is 450. So I'm thinking if I take my 450 and I subtract 135, that it's going to equal how far Lynn's house is, which I'm just going to call L. So what I want to do is I want to compare this equation to the options that I have here. And I'm noticing that they didn't use L, they use Z. So I'm going to go ahead and replace this with Z. Because it doesn't matter what the letter is, as long as it's representing the same amount, which is the distance of Lynn's house. Okay, this says Z is equal to 450 plus 135. I already know that it's equal to 450 minus 135. So this is opposite. Cross off the first option. Let's look here. Z equals 450 minus 135. That's exactly the equation I have. So I'm going to circle that. Z minus 135 equals 450. So now they're combining Z with another amount to get 450 by itself. So we have to try to get 450 by itself. How do we do that? The opposite of subtraction is addition. So to get 450 by itself, do what I do. I have to add 135 on each side. If I do it on the left side of the equal, I have to do it on the right side of the equal sign. So I'm adding 135 to each side. The equation that I end up with is the same, it just looks different. So in this case, I'm getting that 450 equals Z plus 135. So I'm going to ask myself, what choice does this match? It does not match choice C. It does match choice D. So these second and fourth options are both correct representations. Part B. I'm going to do part of this with you. You do part by yourself. Oh, I'm making a video.